Hi, I'm Jonathan Byrd. This is my podcast. You can read and listen to this podcast at jonathanbyrd.substack.com, from where you can also share it, and you can subscribe either for free or you can start a paid subscription to support my writing. Either way, I appreciate you being here. This one is called Break Stuff, Do Science, Wear Your Safety Glasses. I was sitting outside a robotics lab at the North Carolina School of Science and Math. My son was in the lab where a team of children used a few motors and wheels to fling a foam torus across the lab at dangerous speeds. One of them fed the thingies into the whizzing wheels with her bare hands while wearing safety glasses. I was not inside the lab because I had to attend a chemistry lecture online, so I sat in the lobby with my iPad and some headphones to dull the thwack of the foam torus and the cries of injured children. The course I am taking is called Introduction to Chemistry, and Chapter 2 is quite basic. My professor was discussing the history of doing dangerous things for science, particularly the dangerous things people did to figure out what an atom was like. Early on, a British physicist named J.J. Thomson developed an idea known as the plum pudding model. Thomson's hypothesis was that electrons were like raisins spread around in a big atomic cake of positive charge that resembled a British pastry called a plum pudding, which, in keeping with scientific naming conventions, is not a pudding and does not have plums in it, unless you're British, at which point you can assume that everyone in the world understands your inconsistent version of an inconsistent language that has, for better or worse, become the international language of physics. I digress. In fact, this entire piece is about how I digress. In discussing the history of all the fun and dangerous things scientists have done to discover what atoms are like, one must next talk about the Rutherford gold foil experiment. In short, a Japanese physicist named Hantaro Nagaoka rejected the plum pudding model for scientific reasons relating to charge, but also perhaps because it was actually a cake made with raisins and should be called raisin cake. Ernest Rutherford, a New Zealander who probably called the dessert something like Jackie Waptogs, decided he would fuck around and find out. Rutherford, who loved lead boxes and uranium, put some uranium in a lead box. One side of the box had a hole so particles could escape as the radioactive uranium decayed. Everyone wore safety glasses. They pointed the hole at a thin sheet of gold foil, which was surrounded by a circular screen coated with zinc sulfide. The zinc sulfide emitted a little flash of light every time it was hit by an alpha particle, which, in keeping with scientific naming conventions, is not a particle. It's actually 2 protons and 2 neutrons bound together by the strongest force in the universe, which, in a rare lucid moment, physicists named the strong force. If you recognize this little bundle of particles, that's because it's also the nucleus of a helium atom, and all the helium on Earth is produced this way by radioactive minerals. Yes, the thing in a party balloon that makes your voice sound funny was once part of the thing that makes an atom bomb, and not so long ago. So, Rutherford had a box of the atom bomb stuff that was slowly but quite dramatically making the party balloon stuff. He and his assistant Hans Geiger, yes, that Geiger, turned the lights off and sat with this little chunk of uranium until their eyes became accustomed to the dark and they could see the tiny flashes of light that the radioactive particles made on the zinc sulfide screen. They saw that most of the particles flew straight through the foil. Some were deflected by a tiny amount. A rare few bounced off the foil and landed on the side where they were emitted. And presumably, some ripped through Rutherford and Geiger's DNA, encouraging interesting mutations. My professor told us about this as I tried to ignore the muted screams in the next room where my precious child was doing science. And then, as I was reading the PowerPoint slide, everything went quiet in my brain. In cold Arial font, it said, alpha particle velocity approximately 1.4 times 10 to the 7 meters per second, open parentheses, 5% of the speed of light, close parentheses. If you are American, I'm sure you're aware that the speed of light is 3,273,600 football fields per second. If we convert that to standard units, which in keeping with scientific naming conventions almost no one uses, 5% is about 33.5 million miles per hour. 5% of the speed of light is not a detail you think of being hidden away in parentheses. I missed everything the professor said for the next 5 minutes. I knew this wasn't the class to ask the questions I had. Like, 1. Does an alpha particle go from 0 to 33.5 times 10 to the 6 miles per hour instantly? Does the classical concept of acceleration make sense at this level? 2 protons and 2 neutrons together could be large enough to have a fuzzy center of mass, right? This isn't just one question, is it? 2. Does this hurt the gold atom? 3. What's our health insurance deductible? An alpha particle has an atomic mass of 4. A gold atom has an atomic mass of just under 200. Imagine a 4-kilogram weight traveling at 33,550,000 miles per hour and hitting something that weighs 200 kilograms. An alpha particle traveling this unimaginable speed hits a gold nucleus and bounces off. Rutherford said, "It was like firing a 16-inch shell at tissue paper and having it bounce back at you." In the chaos of my online class, accompanied by the firing, thumping, and squealing of teenage scientists in the next room, I had my own sort of eureka moment. Until that second, I hadn't been as interested in quantum mechanics as I was in relativity physics. Maybe it's because you can see moons, apples, and foam toruses, and you can either throw them at things or throw things at them. A raisin cake, even at 5% the speed of light, is a raisin cake. The subatomic world is built differently. I snapped out of my quantum reverie. In Introduction to Chemistry, my professor had moved on to Sir James Chadwick, who was firing alpha particles at beryllium to discover neutrons. My son emerged from the lab, grinning, holding a broken piece of plexiglass, and wearing his safety glasses. This is a reader-supported publication and podcast. To receive new posts and support my work, consider becoming a free or paid subscriber. Thank you for reading and listening. This post is public, so feel free to share it. This week, Saturday night, February the 3rd, I'll be at Cafe Veritas in Rochester, New York, playing my music and not doing science. I mean, you're always doing science, I guess. That's the great thing about music, is that everything is in it. Physics, culture, history, geography, language, everything is there in music. And I still love music so much. And so much of my soul is in it. So I'm happy to be playing a show in Rochester this weekend. Also, this summer, I'm doing 2 tours of Scotland. One, July 3rd to the 13th. I'm doing a photography tour where I'm going to teach you how I think about photography, composition, light, processing, all those things that we use to tell the story of how we felt when we saw it. Also, I'm doing a tour from July 15th to 25th, right after that one, which is a music tour of Scotland. And we saw some of the best musicians that Scotland has to offer. They're internationally known, but they live there. And they came and played in like little restaurants and like these little places where you get to meet these people who are absolutely some of the best musicians in the world. We even met Fiona Ritchie, which was a surprise. I didn't even know that was going to happen. And she came and gave us a little talk about her time working with NPR on the Thistle and Shamrock. And then she came out to the show that night. And it was really amazing to watch her enjoy the music that she had been working with for so long. And she still loved it. She still had her soul in it. That was amazing. So you can sign up for either one of those tours in July at tracelesstours.com. And if you need help finding the link, just let me know. I'd be happy to share it with you. Thanks again for listening. Y'all have a great week.